Andromedan scout Rigel screamed in utter terror as the ferocious human-like beasts hunted him across the hellscape of a planet. The relentless predators stalked him through vast deserts, choking on the poisonous air. They pursued him past erupting volcanoes and through unpredictable hurricanes. The planet's environment killed everything, except the humans. Back on the Andromeda's Pride exploration ship, imposing Andromedan leader Solaris received Rigel's frantic distress signal. The transmission cut to static. Rigel was dead. But what killed him? Concerned, Solaris charted a course to the mysterious, uncharted world. He had to know how anything, even vicious humanoids, could survive such a hellish planet. If he didn't find answers soon, the deadly beings on that world could threaten the entire galaxy. Time was running out before the humans discovered space travel. Solaris needed to uncover their secrets, or billions would perish. The ramp of the Andromeda's Pride lowered with a hiss, revealing the inhospitable landscape beyond. Solaris stepped out first, his boots crunching on the charred gravel. He gestured for his team to follow, and they emerged one by one, activating their environment suits. The air shimmered with heat, distorting their view of the distant structures. "Check your oxygen levels and stay alert," Solaris commanded over the comm. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." They began their trek across the barren terrain, the city gradually taking shape as they drew closer. Towering spires of blackened metal jutted into the hazy sky, surrounded by crumbling walls and piles of rubble. It looked like a war zone, or the aftermath of some cataclysmic event. As they entered the outskirts, Solaris held up a hand, signaling for the team to halt. He stared in disbelief at the sight before him. The inhabitants of this city were not the advanced beings he had expected, but rather primitive humanoids, their bodies covered in tattered cloth and their skin caked with grime. "Are those humans?" one of the Andromedans asked, his voice tinged with shock. Solaris nodded slowly. "They appear to be, but that's impossible. Humans went extinct millennia ago." The team watched as the humans went about their business, seemingly unperturbed by the toxic atmosphere and the oppressive heat. They strode barefoot across the scorching sand, drank from bubbling pools of green liquid, and breathed the poisonous air as if it were the purest oxygen. "I've never seen anything like this," Solaris muttered. "How can they survive in these conditions?" As they ventured deeper into the city, the sound of shouting and cheering drew their attention. They rounded a corner and found themselves in a makeshift arena where two human males were locked in a vicious battle. They wielded crude weapons, a rusted blade and a spiked club, and circled each other like feral beasts. The crowd roared as the fighters clashed, their weapons clanging against each other with brutal force. Blood splattered the sand as they tore at each other's flesh, their faces contorted in primal rage. Solaris watched the spectacle with a mix of horror and fascination. The savagery of it was appalling, yet he couldn't help but marvel at the humans' strength and resilience. They fought with a ferocity he had never seen before, their bodies absorbing blows that would have felled a lesser species. Suddenly one of the fighters, a hulking brute with eyes like chips of ice, caught sight of the Andromedans. He let out a guttural roar and pointed his blade in their direction, his gaze filled with malice. The crowd turned as one, their eyes fixing on the intruders with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. They began to advance, their weapons at the ready, their faces twisted into snarls. "Fall back!" Solaris barked, already backing away. "We need to get out of here now!" The team didn't need to be told twice. They turned and fled, racing back through the winding streets as the sound of pursuit echoed behind them. They barely made it back to the ship before the humans were upon them, howling like demons as they clawed at the hull. Solaris slammed his fist against the airlock controls, sealing them inside. He leaned against the wall, his heart pounding in his chest, his mind reeling from what he had just witnessed. As the Andromeda's Pride lifted off, leaving the cursed planet behind, Solaris knew that this was only the beginning. The humans, with their impossible strength and their unbreakable will, were a mystery he needed to unravel. For if he didn't, they might just be the end of everything he held dear. The Andromeda's Pride hung in the void of space, its hull still scorched from the close call on the planet's surface. Inside, the crew was reeling. Solaris paced the bridge, his mind churning with the implications of what they had seen. The humans, those primitive savages, had not only survived on that hellish world, but thrived. It defied all logic. "Vega," Solaris barked, turning to his science officer. "I need answers. Run every test, every simulation. I want to know how those humans are able to withstand such extreme conditions." Vega nodded, his fingers already flying across the console. For days he worked without rest, analyzing the data they had collected. He ran simulations of the planet's atmosphere, the toxicity levels of the water, the intensity of the solar radiation, and then, on the fourth day, he found it. "Solaris," Vega called out, his voice trembling with excitement. "I've discovered something incredible. The humans, they have a genetic mutation, unlike anything I've ever seen. It allows them to adapt to even the harshest environments. I've dubbed it the Orion gene." Solaris leaned over Vega's shoulder, staring at the readouts on the screen. The Orion gene, the key to the human's survival. But even as the excitement of discovery thrummed through him, Solaris couldn't shake the image of that fierce warrior from his mind, the one with the icy blue eyes and the snarling smile. He had to know more. Days turned into weeks as Solaris pored over the data, trying to unravel the secrets of the humans' culture, their way of life. He barely slept, barely ate. His mind was consumed with the need to understand, to unlock the mysteries of this strange and deadly species. And then the unexpected happened. The proximity alarms blared as a small unmarked spacecraft appeared out of nowhere, docking with the Andromeda's Pride before anyone could react. Solaris raced to the airlock, his heart pounding in his chest. The doors hissed open, revealing a lone figure, a human male, tall and muscular, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to bore into Solaris's very soul. "I am Robert Carter," the human said, his voice deep and commanding, "leader of the Orion clan, and I demand to know why you have come to our world." Solaris swallowed hard, trying to find his voice. We are explorers," he managed. "Seekers of knowledge. We mean you no harm." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Lies," he spat. "You are no different from the others. The invaders, the colonizers. You come to take what is ours, to strip our world bare." Solaris shook his head. "No, you don't understand. We only wish to learn to understand." But Carter was not convinced. He took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. Solaris tensed, ready for a fight. Suddenly Vega's voice crackled over the comm. "Solaris, you need to see this." Solaris hesitated, torn between the confrontation with Carter and the urgency in Vega's voice. But something in his science officer's tone made him pause. He turned to Carter, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Please," he said, "let us continue this conversation in a more civilized manner. There is much we can learn from each other." Carter stared at him for a long moment, his gaze inscrutable. Finally he gave a curt nod. "Very well," he said, "but know this, Andromedan. If you betray us, if you try to take what is ours, you will regret it." With that he turned and stalked off down the corridor, leaving Solaris to wonder just what he had gotten himself into. He made his way to the lab, where Vega was waiting, his face pale and drawn. "What is it?" Solaris asked, "and what have you found?" Vega pointed to the screen, his hand trembling. "The humans," he whispered. "They're not what they seem. They have technology, Solaris, advanced technology, far beyond what we initially believed." Solaris stared at the readouts, his mind reeling. Carter, the fierce warrior, the primitive savage, was not what he appeared to be. He was cunning, formidable, and he had a hidden agenda, one that Solaris could only begin to guess at. The Andromeda's Pride hung in the void of space, its crew facing an uncertain future. The humans, once a mystery to be unraveled, now loomed as a threat on the horizon. And Solaris knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this was only the beginning. Vega burst into the room, his eyes wide with excitement. "Solaris, Carter, I've made an incredible discovery." Solaris turned from Carter, their standoff temporarily forgotten. "What is it, Vega?" "The humans' technology. It's not their own creation. It comes from an ancient alien race called the progenitors. They visited Earth long ago and genetically engineered humans to survive any environment, any challenge. Then they brought them here to Gehenna to test their limits." Carter nodded, a glint of pride in his eyes. "I've dedicated my life to studying the progenitors, their ruins, their artifacts, their legacy." Solaris eyed him warily. "And what does this have to do with us? Why were you waiting for our arrival?" "Because," Carter said, stepping closer, "we believe you hold the key to understanding the progenitors' true purpose, to unlocking their secrets." Solaris considered this revelation. The progenitors, the humans, the Andromedans, all pieces of a vast cosmic puzzle, and he held a critical piece. "Very well," he said at last. "We'll work together to uncover the truth. But don't think for a moment that this makes us allies." Carter grinned, a fierce predatory smile. "I wouldn't dream of it." Together, the unlikely trio set out across the surface of Gehenna. They trekked through blistering deserts and toxic swamps, battling the vicious fauna that lurked in every shadow. Carter proved to be an invaluable guide, his knowledge of the planet's dangers matched only by his skill in combat. As they explored the crumbling ruins of the progenitors, Solaris found himself developing a grudging respect for the human warrior. Carter's strength, his tenacity, his sheer force of will, they were qualities Solaris recognized in himself. Deep within an ancient temple, they made a chilling discovery. The progenitors had not simply vanished. They had been driven from the galaxy by a malevolent race known as the Void Wraiths. The humans were created as a weapon against these invaders, but even they had not been enough to stave off defeat. Carter's face grew grim as he studied the faded hieroglyphs. "The Void Wraiths are coming back," he said quietly. "They seek to erase all trace of the progenitors and their creations." Solaris felt a cold dread settle in his gut. The Void Wraiths, the progenitors, the humans, it was all connected. And now, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. He turned to Carter, meeting the human's steely gaze. "We have to stop them," Solaris said. "Whatever our differences, we cannot let the Void Wraiths win." Carter nodded, a spark of determination in his eyes. "Agreed, we fight together or we die alone." As they emerged from the temple, ready to face the oncoming storm, Solaris couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. The humans, once a mystery, now held the key to salvation. And with Carter by his side, he knew they just might have a chance. Solaris, Carter, and their combined forces scoured the ruins of the progenitors, searching for any clue that could lead them to the Infinity Engine. They pored over ancient texts, deciphered cryptic symbols, and followed the faintest of trails. Time was running out, and the Void Wraiths were closing in. "There!" Vega shouted, pointing to a holographic map that flickered to life before them. "The Infinity Engine is located in the heart of the progenitor citadel, buried deep beneath the surface." Solaris nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Then that's where we'll go. Carter, gather your best warriors. We'll need all the strength we can muster." As they made their way towards the citadel, the ground shook beneath their feet. The Void Wraiths had launched their attack, raining down fire and destruction upon Gehenna. The skies darkened with their ships, and the air filled with the screams of their monstrous creations. The humans and Andromedans fought side by side, their weapons blazing as they cut through the enemy ranks. But the Void Wraiths were relentless, and their numbers seemed endless. Solaris watched in horror as his allies fell one by one, their blood staining the barren earth. "We can't hold them off much longer," Carter shouted over the din of battle. "We have to reach the Infinity Engine now." They fought their way into the heart of the citadel, battling past the Void Wraith's elite guards and their twisted abominations. Finally, they stood before the Infinity Engine, a massive construct of gleaming metal and pulsing energy. But as they approached, a monstrous creature emerged from the shadows, a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine. It was a remnant of the progenitor's experiments, a being of unimaginable power and fury. Solaris and Carter charged forward, their weapons flashing as they engaged the creature in a brutal battle. They dodged its crushing blows and searing energy beams, striking back with everything they had. But the creature was too strong, and Carter was thrown back, his body broken and bleeding. Solaris rushed to his side, cradling his friend in his arms. "Go," Carter whispered, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Activate the Infinity Engine, save our people." Solaris nodded, tears streaming down his face. He laid Carter gently on the ground and turned to face the creature, his eyes blazing with determination. With a final desperate charge, Solaris leapt towards the Infinity Engine, his hand outstretched. The creature lunged forward, its claws tearing at his flesh. But Solaris pushed through the pain, his fingers closing around the activation switch. As the Infinity Engine hummed to life, Solaris felt a surge of power coursing through his body. He knew what he had to do. The only way to stop the Void Wraiths was to overload the device, to create a massive explosion that would consume Gehenna and everything on it. Solaris looked back at Carter, at the brave humans who had fought by his side. They had become more than allies. They had become his friends. With a heavy heart, he bid them farewell. "Forgive me," he whispered as he pushed the activation switch to its maximum setting. The Infinity Engine exploded in a blinding flash of light, a shockwave of energy that rippled out across the planet's surface. The Void Wraiths and their creatures were instantly vaporized, their ships consumed in the searing blast. Gehenna itself shuddered and cracked, its surface buckling under the immense force of the explosion. The planet collapsed in on itself, a gaping wound in the fabric of space. And Solaris, the brave Andromedan who had given everything to save the galaxy, was lost in the maelstrom, his body torn apart by the very weapon he had unleashed. In the aftermath of the Void Wraith War, the Andromedans returned to their own space, forever changed by their encounter with the humans of Gehenna. They had witnessed the lengths to which Solaris and Carter had gone to protect their people, and they had seen the terrible cost of that sacrifice. The story of Gehenna became a legend, whispered in the halls of power and the corners of distant outposts. It was a tale of bravery and sacrifice, of the unbreakable bond between two warriors from different worlds. And though the galaxy would never be the same, the memory of Solaris and Carter would live on, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who fought for what they believed in, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.